Of April 2024. This is Gimbalabs Open Spaces. We get together on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 14:30 UTC to just get to work together. We follow an open space format because you never know who's going to show up and you never know exactly what our priorities are going to be. And so that's why we start each of these sessions just by pulling up this Miro board right here, grabbing a little timer and setting 2 minutes on the clock and just giving everybody a chance to collect their thoughts and think about what you might want to talk about, present, or work on today. So I'll set the clock for 2 minutes. And as always, if you're in the Miro, feel free to grab a sticky note. But if you don't have the Miro open, just drop what you want to work on in the chat or unmute, and I'll add it to the board for you. Otherwise, see you in 2 minutes. Right, all right. So yeah, it looks like just a couple of things for today. I threw continuing work on PPBL 2024, so that's my priority. Ken, you want to say a word about where the proposal stands?
Yeah, I wrote something up on Notion. I can share a link in the chat when we're ready to discuss it.
Cool. Is the proposal ready to go through the consent process for today, or are you still drafting
Um,
it?
I I think so. Like I think a lot was shared with what I've actually showed last or yesterday, and so I don't know. We could look it over. I think it's pretty much ready.
Okay. And then Harsha, I know you added a work session here, but you also mentioned before we were jumping in that maybe you had something to share today or soon.
Yeah, soon. Hopefully, I'll get it done today and share next week. There are a couple of things I needed some suggestions on. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, what do you guys think? Should we, here in the main room, what if we start by starting a consent process for Ken's proposal? And if there's time left, we'll jump back into PBL planning. Is that okay? All right, cool. So Ken, if you don't mind sharing the link and sharing screen, we can move through the process together.
Okay. Might take me a second to share the screen. I'm not sure. I haven't ever done it with the actual share screen function on Zoom before. I don't know how. Let me see. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is what I,
Got it. Yeah.
okay.
So folks have now the quality. Let me check the live stream just to I might share screen for you just because I know that we're getting a little bit of a low quality here.
Okay, that might be better.
Yeah, I'll do it for you. Okay. Because it's coming through a little jagged. I got you. Let's go here. Can people see that okay?
Yeah.
And you've got the link on, everybody's got the link in the chat as well. So let's take it through the process. So first of all, we start with the driver, proposal driver. As Gimbalab seeks to help people become contributors to the Cardano ecosystem, it's important the website provides an engaging experience that draws people into the process of learning and exploring. Is this description of the driver clear enough? And does it feel relevant enough to everybody?
I have a small suggestion. I just think I mean the current Gimbal Labs website, what is not working in it, if is mentioned, I think it would be helpful.
Okay. So like as far as updates, should I try to update the document or should we just talk about it or what?
Yeah, so at this point, we would want to make sure that this is clear enough to everybody, right? And so Harsh's feedback is that, and Harsh, is your question to the relevance of the proposal?
Yeah, so there has to be a tension that drives the driver. So I was wondering if the tension is also somewhere in the proposal.
Oh, that's part of what we discussed yesterday. Um,
No,
I
no,
think,
I do remember the discussion. I'm 100%
yeah,
agreeing with it. Just like in the proposal, if it is there, I think it'll be easier for understanding and navigating.
And remember that part of a driver is to describe the current situation, right? So maybe
Okay.
can a sentence or two about, hey, what is the current situation? This feels like a good response to any number of situations. But I do think I agree with Harsha that that should be included here. And so if you want to, we can make live updates now. So you've got this document open in your Notion. And I think it should live update on my screen. Or we could decide that you can just take a little time to
Yeah,
describe the current situation.
I'm writing some stuff. It might take time before it updates. That's, I don't know, that's good enough, or what do people think?
Yeah, is this a clear enough driver now for everybody?
It's a little hard to navigate and doesn't, well, I don't know. Is it the attention? Because I kind of, I don't understand. Like if you scroll down on the present website, it's just, yeah, well,
Yeah,
I don't.
there's
There is not
different
really
kinds of,
much. There isn't really much navigation.
well,
It's like
there's
just
different kinds
everything
of,
you need is at the top. The blog, the
yeah.
calendar, and the solutions is like. I don't think I ever scrolled the
Well,
website.
the idea is that you just go to the calendar and then that's pretty much all you do to interact with it. Maybe the blog if you want to read the articles there, but that's
Yeah,
like
so it'd be
this doesn't have
kind of
much interactivity, I guess. Maybe that's doesn't provide.
so yeah, so what you are implying is so for me, for example, I am using the website to, and this comes back to the question: who is the user of the website? Because for me, a website is like as you're saying in the proposal, website is to what it says. Yeah, wait, I'm just gonna switch to Zoom. Yeah. Website provides engaging experience. So for me, it provides engaging experience because it has everything I need. And I don't
Does
know
it?
how everyone else feels about it.
I mean, personally, for me now, it is okay because I just like the rest of you, I just click the calendar, pick a time, and usually whatever happens, I check on Discord. But for first timers, I think uh, um,
Yeah.
Ken's suggestion makes sense for people who
So
are visiting Gimbalabs for first time.
yeah, so that's like who is the user of the website? Is it the community members who utilize the website for their particular needs? Or is the user of the website someone who is new to Gimbalabs and is looking to learn more about Gimbalabs? So in this sense, I think maybe the current website, I
If
don't
you go
know
back to
how.
the primary driver, though, what's the primary driver? It's about building a space for learning and exploring. So like, I think that's more tailored towards new users, like people who are new people coming into the community. So like, yeah, people who are here already, they're already plugged in and have a sense of where they fit into the community. But if you're trying to build a space for people to learn and explore, then I think that there's
But how did you
that's
discover Gimbalabs? Can you tell me? Did you do it
um
through the website?
probably it was through, I'm sure it was through conversations that happened in the Catalyst
Right.
town halls and stuff originally.
And I
And
think the most
never really used
newcomers
I never
come.
really used the website until I was trying to look for a Gimbalabs link to join one of the meetings.
Right. So that's, I think, the process that most contributors and most members of Gimbalabs followed, me as well. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but
so
is that a good process, or can that process be improved? Can you have the website be engaging enough so that it's an onboarding
that's a
solution
good question. Yeah, that's a
labs?
good question.
If you refresh the page, I changed it a bit.
I do really like your design. It's like really eye-catching. And uh, but then again, there's like do we have a unified kind of theme or but I think but I think your version captures the spirit of Gimbalabs in its visual appearance. I like it. But yeah,
Yeah. I think the ideas that I've got behind functionality are more important than the actual visual part of it. The visual part is easy to change later. I just wanted to give an example of where my thought process is going, and if there's input from the community on how to make it better reflect Gimbalabs as an organization, then I'm open to that.
So I'm thinking about describing organizational drivers, which we've started this year by talking about. We now have a current situation, right? Currently, the website doesn't provide much interactivity and community engagement. We have an effect, or no, it would be, what's this? This is the need, right? The need of the organization is that the website provides an engaging experience that draws people into the process. So I think we need to add, what's the effect of this situation? And we need, what's the impact of attending to this? If we do attend to this need right here, what will the impact be? And I know that the answers to those questions might feel self-evident, and even so, it's worth it to include them in this proposal driver right here. So should we craft that together using the whole group, or is that something you want to take away and refine so that we can get into this proposal next time? I'm good either way. I'm happy to use this time right now for this. But clearly, yeah, we need 2 more sentences in this driver to make sure it's ready to go.
So what were the 2 different things you said again?
I'm looking on the Miro board right here, right? So current situation, I think you've done that. effect of this situation on the org. I don't think the driver statement has that yet. The need, I think you've got that in the first sentence. And the impact of attending to this need is the other thing you need to add. So the second one, what's the effect and what would be the impact, should be included here.
Yeah.
And there's more details over here on this green sticky if you want to go a little deeper. Ken, how do you want to spend time right now? Should we do this together or?
Sure, like I'd like to, if we can.
Okay.
I'm making some changes now, but yeah, what do you think? Like we can, if you want to move on to something else. It's an option.
I haven't heard objections yet to staying here, so why don't we stay here? But if anybody wants to jump to a breakout room, let me open those now. And if anybody objects to using our main time for this, just speak up. Otherwise, yeah, let's stick with this and try to get it right. In the long run, what we want to do is build an organization where every time somebody brings a proposal, the driver is already written, right? And has the following. But I think the reason it's worth staying here for this right now is we're all practicing this together. So a little bit of live practice on this can't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm want to refresh one more time.
So is this description of the driver clear enough to everybody? And does this feel relevant enough to respond to?
I kind of lost you from. So the driver for the proposal is not allowing us to move forward, right?
Correct. Yeah, this driver has to feel relevant and clear enough before anybody can consider a proposal about it, right? We have to decide that collectively.
We're talking about Gimbalabs driver or this particular proposal driver?
This proposal driver, yeah, Ken included the labs, a section of this, right?
All right. Sorry, I just lost it for a moment. So the proposal driver is Gimbalabs seeks to help people become contributors in the Cardano ecosystem. It's important that the website provides engaging experience that draws people into the process of learning and exploring. But again, like my point is that the website doesn't provide engaging experience. It's not its purpose. Its purpose is so that we can have a space which we could place our ideas into, and so we could share it from the name of Gimbalabs in case we need it. That's how I use the website. So just someone asks me, "Hey man, can you volunteer to my project?" I say, "Man, you have to bring it to Playground. Here is the Miro link. Here is the website calendar link. Here is a video on YouTube which shows what happens at the Playground. So just watch the video, follow the Miro, and then like see if your calendar fits, and just register at Miro." And that's how I use the website. Just are we go like is like the purpose of the website? So what is the bang for the buck? That's what I'm saying. Like if we try to use the website to drive more developers in, do we want them to navigate the website? Yeah, probably. If they heard in the Catalyst, they heard about this. Again, it's like most people probably first join Discord because it's a sort of our primary communication and engagement platform. The website in the crypto space is not, again, everybody's using their website. They just put the white paper in, and it's like advertisement, and also to show credibility. And for this, I really do like how the new website looks actually, but I don't think the driver is kind of, so there's no tension again, as Harsh said. So yeah, it doesn't provide interactivity and community. It's not its purpose.
There's different perspectives that different people would have trying to come into the process of engaging with Gimbalabs. Personally, for me, like I really dislike using Discord. It's not an easy process for me. I have to use it in the web browser, and I don't really get any updates when people are trying to send me messages or something. So just the way that my computer is set up, so it's like it's not a pleasant experience using Discord for me. So I don't know, like different people have different experiences.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing some concerns about relevance. Is this driver relevant enough to move forward with?
So I have a small question, like a high-level question. So unless Ken is specifically asking for some treasury that needs to be unlocked for the work, what would stop Ken from doing what he's doing?
Great. That's a perfect question for us to be figuring out together, right? Gimbalabs is a place where if you want to do something, you just do it, right? And we have 3 years of history of that happening, right? And now we also have funds to get work done and requests for the time of other people. So from that perspective, there's no barrier to Ken just moving forward with the project. However, if he's asking time of the rest of us or for funds from the Gimbalabs treasury, then a proposal would be required.
Yeah, I do mention funds below. I just basically shared about my situation. I'm not sure like what exactly I'd ask for as far as funds from for this project specifically, but like it's just not something that that's not really how I think. So it's hard for me to.
Sure. Well, yeah. So are you proposing to use any funds or to ask other people to spend time on this project? If so, we have to get the driver right. And then the proposal has to be complete. whether it's comfortable to talk about or not, resources required has to be very clear, very specific. It has to show the time frame. Are we talking about 3 months times 800 USD? Then this would be a proposal for 2,400 USD. And that's what people would be consenting to. And if you need time from other people, that has to be clearly presented here in the responsibilities. And I definitely have concerns about the responsibilities moving forward. It's one thing to do a design over the next 3 months, but what would follow that in terms of maintenance, right? So there's plenty there that I do think needs to be fleshed out before anybody can consent to anything.
Yeah, I was talked about that in one of the other sections that we skipped over, but
Okay. All right. So in any case, so it sounds like there is stuff about both time and money in this proposal. And so that being the case, yes, a proposal will be required. And step one is we have to agree that this is relevant enough to respond to right now. And that's why we're starting with the driver. So is this driver clear and relevant enough to everybody here that we should move forward with now going through the proposal? If not, it's okay, right? And if so, right, if nobody's blocking us here, then that means, right, you think this is safe enough and relevant enough that we should respond to this driver. If you agree to that, let's jump into the proposal.
Well, for safety, I have concern then that what you're saying, like so there's like $2,500, $2,400, and the website will work for 3 months at least. It probably will work for a couple of years.
well, it's yeah, like
But the thing is, for example, the first time I think I hear about Elm, and for me, it would be important if the work of maintaining the website would be so interesting to someone else in the community, so that they volunteer to do it for free, and just for the sake
well,
of learning.
that's something I talk about in the actual content of the proposal.
But can you
Like
just
that's
which section?
implementation details. It's not like the driver behind the proposal
But maybe
itself.
looking at the implementation details can help us figure out the driver as well. Because again, if we can make a website for which people come to learn to maintain and work as a sysadmin, because it's a skill. And Gimbalabs, for me, for example, when I joined Gimbalabs, was like one of the primary drivers for me, and like the primary driver was, wow, my skills really suck. I need a lot of practice and here is a perfect place where I can help people like figure out what's valuable and then invest my time, and it worked for me really well.
The third point of section 4.
Okay. Code will be clean. Once you get acquainted with how code base works, and eventually one section inside the yeah, so like what you're offering is to also stay in Gimbalabs for some time and to advise anyone who would like to learn
Well,
Elm.
like what I'm suggesting is that the source code for the site will be posted as a section on the site itself. So, and along with material for people to learn exactly how everything works.
Right. So it's a self kind of a site and the course in the same kind of package.
Yes.
Right.
This is really helpful to dive into these. And Ken, I would really recommend taking some of these outcomes and details and expressing this in the driver, right? So currently, the website doesn't provide much interactivity and community engagement.
Yeah.
Right?
My question though is to how much should you repeat yourself in every section? Like
A proposal should be like a Law and Order episode, right? People love Law and Order because that TV show tells you exactly what the mystery is, and then it reiterates over and over again what the mystery is before it hits you over the head with a solution to the mystery. And people
Yeah.
love that because it's not cognitively demanding, right? So you get to go on this adventure. This primary driver should make sure that anybody reading this proposal, or sorry, proposal driver, right, is not making people do the hard work. The reader should read your driver and say, yeah, that is the current situation. And heck yeah, that does need to change because of these consequences. And I can see what those benefits will be, right? Current situation, people only use the website to find Zoom links. Okay, that's okay, right? But I think it's really compelling what you're saying down here. If we do this, there's going to be better opportunities for people to add to the website, right? The current situation is that it's hard for people to contribute to the website, right? The current situation is that the code base, yeah, has been hacked together by a very, very small team for the last 3 years, and it hasn't been anybody's priority. Therefore, the code base is a little messy. It's not newcomer friendly. So we can propose to make that code base for the website better for newcomers. And so in addition to an overhaul, we're also giving people the chance to learn from the website itself. And everything I'm saying, right, that's all potential fodder for your driver. And I don't think you have to include all of it, but get this driver to a point where everybody here who sees it says, heck yeah, that is the situation. It does have these negative consequences. Therefore, we need something, and I'm excited about these benefits. And if you have it at that point, now there's no concerns about its relevance. You want to take that away and bring it back next week with a driver that lights people up?
Uh, for like I'm still not sure as like yesterday we were talking about how the design itself could be part of the what I shared could be part of the process of or the proposal itself. So like I don't know. Yeah, like it's okay. Yeah. We'll
I
figure it
think
out.
what you shared yesterday is great. It's very inspiring. And now we're talking about spending other people's time and spending money on changing a situation, right? And to ask for those things, everybody has to understand, yes, this is relevant enough for us to spend time and money on. What I'm hearing is we're not there yet, but we're in the process of refining a proposal to get there. That's the whole point, right?
Good.
I know that from my perspective, this is absolutely a tension. For example, I can share personally, it's absolutely a tension for me that the website in its current state doesn't sufficiently present information about everything that's happening at Gimbalabs. So why is it still like that? Well, there's only so many people who have ever contributed to it. And as the lead contributor to that project, as of now, I haven't made it my priority because even though it's attention, it's not enough of attention to rise to the top of my backlog. Understood? Right.
Yeah.
And so I want it to, right? But I can't, right? Like this is so exciting that this is coming to the table, that this is something we might respond to together. But I can imagine an alternative proposal, for example, that doesn't focus on rewriting the whole thing from scratch, right? That's what you're proposing to do, and that's incredibly exciting.
For me, it's the easiest way to do it instead of like I've looked through the source code of the website and it's the easiest thing to do is to rewrite it because Elm is probably the language that I'm most competent in. So
Okay. So that's right. That's subjective. For you, the easiest way to do it is to rewrite it from scratch and to do so in Elm. That raises further questions, right? How many other people are going to have to dedicate time to learning Elm, for example, in order to make sure that this project is supported in the long term, right? You might do this, but then get busy in 6 months and not have any more time for it. If that were to happen, how different would our new state be from current state? It's likely it would be different, but show us, right? How can we be sure that this is safe enough to dedicate time to this particular tension, given that it's not the only one we have and that there's already ongoing work?
yeah.
So this reminds me of just this week, and I shared a couple of weeks earlier that I'm working on an Angular application for my friend. And the thing is, they wrote it about 6, 7 years ago. And we had a very similar situation where he described the feature to me in how do you call a piece of text with like one dot in it? What's the English name for it? So like from the one big letter to the end of a sentence. Yeah. So he described it in one sentence. So I went to the docs, like Ionic docs, and yeah, fair enough. Like popover is a piece of kind of UI design. I edited it, and then there's like with a little bit of effort, I added the required data to the popover, and it was made of buttons and exactly items that are needed to be presented to the user. And he looked at it and said, like, yeah, but it's not like it was. He was supposed to make it like it was. And now I went into the actual code for the old website or the old application, and I'm looking at it, and I just copied it and pasted it. But the funny thing is, like 7 years ago, when I used Angular 2, strong typing wasn't a thing. And some of the things that they use there, it relies on weak typing. And now I cannot use weak typing. So like half of the code is broken. And I have to kind of, uh, yeah. And so, yeah.
language server, and the language server return.
So yeah, sorry for the like tangential rant.
Juan shared attention in the chat as well. That sounds more like a concern about this proposal. And I just want to reiterate, this is it. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing right now, right? We have a possible proposal. And now we're doing the work of refining it. And it starts, I think, a very good conversation. So Ken, thanks for A, the inspiring prototype, B, for starting this process, and C, for embracing it, right? I recognize that it would be really nice just to get this proposal through as quickly as possible. But this is a great chance to kind of see the value of now framing this driver in a way that everybody is ready to get behind. So let's ask that question again next week or as soon as you're ready, right?
Okay.
Refine this driver, get it to the point where
Now nailed it.
I happen to be facilitating today. If anybody else wants to practice facilitating the process, speak up anytime. I know Harsha, Juan, Sebastian, you guys have all been looking at the S3 processes. Ken, I know you have too, but it's hard to be the facilitator for your own proposal. So I was offering you that today, right? So you can really be the proposer and I can be the facilitator. But next time we look at this, I'll ask again, right? Is this description of the driver and the requirement clear enough? And is this relevant enough for us to respond to? We'll start with that question again, and we'll keep asking it until we get a resounding yes from the crew.
Okay.
Rock and roll. Great process work, and thanks for everybody for engaging this. I think we are creating a pretty incredible benchmark against which to measure our progress, right? You can imagine a future where proposals come in, all of us look at it, say, yep, all systems go, right? We're going to get to that point, and this is a stepping stone towards that. And what's interesting about that is, hey, Ken, maybe the website helps us facilitate that process, right? If people have a way to learn. So I think it's really interesting how all these pieces are connected. Cool. Well, the breakout rooms are open. We got a little bit more than a half hour left. The other thing on our agenda today was to get back into the PPBL 2024 planning. That's an approved project with a budget that anybody's welcome to opt into. So I was going to keep going on that, unless there's anything else anybody wanted to touch on. Any objections to jumping into PPBL? Where do I have that open? Here we go. So we did a couple things yesterday. And I'm opening both the Notion outline. You know what? I'm going to keep these side by side like I had a minute ago, so I don't have to change what I'm sharing. All right. So on the left, we've got the working Notion doc where we've been starting to draft the course. And on the right, we have the space in Andamio where we've started to add these modules and learning targets. We've got some contributors. Juan and Sebastian are on board. And if anybody else logged in to andamio.io here, v2.andamio.io, if you did log in and if you do want to practice writing some content here, feel free and let me know. There's just one thing you've got to do behind the scenes to become a course creator. So just let me know. Does anybody need to do that step right now? Anybody logged in who's not yet a course creator? And you can do that anytime, just let me know. For now, what I was hoping we could do is start just adding the 200 level modules here so we have a place to start dropping learning targets in. And I'm starting to feel pretty excited about 201 and 202. This is what we talked about yesterday. So let's just see how this feels, right? What if module 201 was, and this is a working title, it might change, right? We can always tweak the exact wording later. Let's turn that off. Okay. Cool. So building a front end. And then we've got 202 would be minting tokens. Start to imagine this flow. So people come in, they get started. They write their first smart contract in one of any number of languages. They start to learn about building some transactions, and they do the lucky number assignment that we've used in the past. Then we just introduce the course, right? Now that you're started, here's what we're going to be doing here. And then finally, we hit the ground running. Okay, let's build a little front end that helps us have some of the interactions you're already starting to learn about. Now let's learn how to mint tokens. And then three more things. queries, digging into more about writing validators like datum, redeemer, context, and transaction metadata and SIPs combined in a way that shows people where NFTs came from and what makes them possible. But the fact that the SIP process is ongoing, right? So this is an interesting, I think, high-level connection to make, and we can show people in the way we've done it in previous years. But I don't have a strong feeling about what order to place these three modules. Does anybody, if you look at these three topics right here, following front end and token minting, what would you do first? Show people more about different ways to query? Do a little bit more with Plutus itself or validate it itself in whatever language? Or jump into minting NFTs and metadata? Call those 20X because we haven't decided yet. Hinson, when you see these three things, what order do they go in your head?
I'm still thinking. Let's think. Oh wow.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Just wondering. Anybody else?
Never
What do you
mind.
think?
Yeah.
First mint the NFT, then query the NFT, and then do the validate the essentials.
We have a motion to first mint NFTs, then do some queries, maybe even with the data created here. That's pretty interesting. And then finally come full circle to writing some validators. One possibility. Thanks, Adrian. What do you think? Got a thumbs up on that from Sebastian.
Yeah, I was thinking querying the blockchain is a fantastic experience. But minting NFTs, you build first the artifact, and then you query some information on that artifact. That sounds natural.
Build first the artifact. I love that. Right, if that was 203, then 204, right? So if this was 203, you're creating some on-chain artifacts. In 204, now you're getting the query, right? Oops.
Because you as a
Yeah.
student, you can see how what you built is sticking in the blockchain. It's
Mhm.
live in the blockchain.
Yeah.
It's really good experience.
I think the story could be just querying back the NFT just minted in 203.
Right. And what's cool, when you say querying the NFT, that could mean several different things, right? Right? The policy ID, the minting metadata.
Sure.
Ooh, maybe SIP68 stuff. I don't know.
What about SIP68? What's like the meat of it? I read it to answer Wim's question and I completely forgot about it. Why everyone keep talking about it? What's like it's the most talked CIP since 1694.
People, well, right. It strikes a nerve for this. The essential idea is SIP25 gave us, and what this needs to be part of the narrative here, right? So when we show people the SIP process, while I'm answering your question, let me write it into this module too, because we need it here, right? So we need to show learners the difference between SIP25 and SIP68 and give a little history of both, right? So what is that? In briefly, SIP25 is what outlines how the transaction metadata standard for NFT works, right? This is how space buds and everything that came after were created, right? By placing metadata on a minting transaction in the format described here. Later, SIP68 emerged, actually in response to some tensions, to use the S3 term, about SIP25. What were those tensions? Okay. With SIP25. First of all, you can't directly use TX metadata in a Plutus validator. Okay, so anytime we want to talk about smart contracts, all of the data people were putting on chain as transaction metadata didn't really help us when it came to writing validators. Plutus, I'm using the word Plutus more in the UPLC sense, right? Whatever, any kinds of validators written in any smart contract language, okay? And it's hard to change the TX metadata on a minting transaction. And some might say it's even impossible, right? Like this minting metadata is on chain once and forever, right? Metadata, transaction metadata, once it's on, you can't erase it. All you can do is you can replace it and change the reference to it, okay? So SIP68 comes along, right?
So SIP68 is this royalty NFT here? Or no?
Well, I don't know the exact relationship between general. I think there's a different SIP for royalty NFTs, and if anybody knows what number that is, we should include that here too. But SIP68, sure, it could be used for royalties. But before we even get to that, what does it do, right? Well, first of all, it says, what if we included the NFT info, right? The NFT data in datum instead of TX metadata, so that the datum could be updated and used in Plutus validator code. And really, these two things are related. What gets very, very interesting about SIP68 is this pattern allows us to think about how the datum associated with a token in the first place can be changed according to some validation logic, okay? The other thing here is this introduces a concept of token pairs in order to accomplish all of this. So a lot of my experience with SIP68 is using some parts of it, the concept that we want to store something important in the datum, and the fact that there's token pairs, but there's still some ongoing discussions about how exactly to orchestrate those pairs or even more than two, right? Those combinations of tokens working together. But that goes a little beyond the scope. Like that stuff we want to cover in the course, it might go beyond the scope of this overview right now.
What about moving the SIP68 stuff into the validator essentials?
Yeah.
Would that fit?
So I think so. I think so, right? So we could do the deeper dive into SIP68 and adjacent concepts, right?
Yeah. In reality, the SIP68 does not happen with the token, it happens in the datum of a validator.
Correct. Right.
I think there's like one misleading thing about this, the whole CIP stuff is that we tend to look at CIPs, but actually to understand what it's about, we should look at CPS because like CIP is a lot of just technical thing. I just look at it but what does it do? But then, yeah, we have to look at the CPS actually.
Right. There's that. And there's the fact that it's arbitrary. My favorite thing about SIP25 and everything that followed, the entire Cardano NFT ecosystem, is that it's based on an arbitrary agreement just to use a certain data schema. And that schema could have been different. And also, it's not the only one forever. But we've built enough tools at this point that agree to use the schema suggested here. that it might as well be a formalized thing, right? And it is, right? It's formally written here as a SIP, but there's nothing forcing anybody to use it other than the fact that that's just where the most implementations and the most tools are going to be. Okay, so that's the concept, right? Okay, so now let me collapse these again. How does that narrative feel to everybody? Okay, we taught you a little bit about how just to make a little front end, right? You're here to become a Cardano developer. You have to understand that at the end of the day, your goal is to build something that somebody else will use, and it's likely that you're going to want a front end for that app. You might be building command line tools. That's fine, right? Those have a select audience. For now, we're going to focus on an assumption that eventually you want some kind of front end. We introduce it. Then we say, all right, now you've got a front end that you can use. You don't have to go too deep into it. You could just use the demo if you want. Of course, if you do want to look under the hood, we're going to help you do that. Now, another thing you need to know about is minting tokens. So we go through that. Cool. We show a few different ways to do it. And then we say, okay, now that you know how to mint tokens, one of the things people like to do in the front end of an application is interact with NFTs. They want to look at them, want to buy them, sell them, use them for something. Let's talk about minting NFTs. Well, if we want to do that, you're going to have to understand what transaction metadata is. And you got to know that this standard came from somewhere. It's called the SIP process, and we'll introduce that to you. Cool. By the end of this module, you will have minted an NFT. All right, so assignment. Obviously, we're going to need more details, but the assignment is basically mint some kind of NFT. Cool. Once we do that, now we want to look at the results of that work. So we dip a little bit into writing queries, right? We've created an artifact here. Now we're going to learn how to query against that artifact and get some information about it. And finally, we're going to go deeper into validators. And it's possible that we will mention SIP68 here and say, want to learn more? Look at module 205.
Do we want to look in the future and maybe mention CIP 116, which I'm pretty sure you don't know because it was like it got the number just this week.
So a teacher has to make a really important goal, right? Is the teacher trying to demonstrate how much they know, or is the teacher trying to help learners learn?
Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of figuring out. The CIP I'm talking about is about DREP metadata. Is this something that is useful for a learner? And DREP metadata standard.
Excellent. Okay, I love it. Okay, so this course is for people who want to be developers on Cardano. I think some mention of governance work is probably important, right? Why? Because with Plutus V3 and with everything that happens after the Conway fork, we're now going to have native on-chain abilities to create governance actions, right? Just like we have the ability to mint tokens, we're going to have the ability to use governance actions in both our transactions and our validation code. So we probably do want to introduce that at some point. And yeah, something about a gov related SIP or two, right? Which ones? I think that's a good R&D question. So I'll take a look if interested. But yeah, so Alex, without committing to write which one, let's look at that. Obviously, you just said 110.
116, but I don't think it's relevant really because, you know, if we were looking into being developers of the governance tooling, then yeah, because this CIP will come into play when we are developing, for example, front end for like the proposal discussion forum or the governance tool, because then like it's actually a feature I'm proposing for the GovTool working group, so that at the moment, I don't know if you try to play around with it, but there's like you have to include this metadata, but at the moment the process is like you have to send some information to GitHub, then you have to get the hash, and this all could be automated with an application. So for this application, for this automation part, this would be really like needed, this metadata standard. It has to be defined and approved. But I don't think it's relevant to the learners, actually, now thinking about it.
Very good. Yep. This might be fodder for a future course, right? There might be some advanced thing we do later, or there might be projects that we're inviting students into. But yeah, I love this question of what's the most relevant thing for somebody who's onboarding to Cardano application development, right? We all agree that they gotta understand what a validator is. They gotta understand what a transaction is. They need some kind of framework for thinking about application UI. They need to know how to mint tokens. They need to know about transaction metadata and NFTs. We give them a little bit of SIP along the way. They need to know about querying, and they need to know more about how validators are written. Namely, at the very least, you got to know these three things. Right? What's datum? What's a little bit about how it's used? What's redeemer? What's a little bit about how it's used? And what do we mean by script context? How do I use it? This does feel really essential. And there's other things that might also be essential, and they could be added as additional 200 level modules, or even if we want to start using like 300 is where people specialize a little bit more, right? But remember, in terms of specialization, we also have the ability to link people out to other courses. And so this course might not have 300 level modules, because instead we might only have references. Hey, you want to specialize in front-end development using mesh? There's a course over here for that. You want to specialize in Aiken? Ooh, there's a course over there for that. You want to specialize in Helios? We can build a course for that. And now with that framework in mind, we can think about governance. Is governance something we try to include here? Maybe it's module 206, maybe. Or do we say, hey, governance is coming online right now. Here's a course or here's a structure at Gimbalabs where we are diving deeper into it. You want to specialize in governance? Go over here. How does that feel?
I feel like governance has to be mentioned, because for me, for example, when everybody started to talk about this, I had this sort of kind of, feeling of why the hell, and just being upfront. And that's because it looks like at the moment, this is one of the core of value proposition of Cardano to the developers and to learners and to everyone, like, so that we want to build governance. So maybe, yeah, a little bit.
Right? And governance, if we're saying, should governance somehow be included, a list of other things starts to emerge.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to say anything for SPOs? Do we want to say anything about Hydra? Do we want to say anything about identity? It's okay.
It's about specialization, no?
Say again?
It's already at level of specialization. Do you want to specialize in identity? Do you want to specialize in whatever the Hydra is doing? Do you want to running a staple is a pretty specific thing? I can proudly call myself Cardano developer. I have no idea about how to run a staple.
Correct, right, exactly. So this is the question we ask about each one of these, right? And I agree with you. I think SPO stuff doesn't really fit into this course, because this is a course for new Cardano devs. Would it be awesome for Gimbalabs to have an SPO onboarding course? Absolutely, right? But now we come back to that question about relevance and prioritization, right? Is it a high enough priority that we're going to start building it now? Or is this something that goes in a backlog and maybe doesn't happen till 2027? So we have obviously a bank of future questions starting to show up here. That's really exciting. But let's see how this feels. Let's just add these modules just to see what it feels like. So now we're going to say minting NFTs, right? And this is transaction metadata, SIP process, and using shared standards is the concept here. So we can use the description field, 203, cool. Okay, and then we've got 204 is going to be about querying the blockchain. Great. And there's a variety of tools we might use there. We can add those later. And finally, we get to validator essentials, datums, redeemers, and context. Oh my, 205. There we go. What if this was the course? What if this was Plutus PBL? An onboarding course for people who are just starting their journey into Cardano development. We can think about learning targets if we're okay with this, right? What do we have so far? So 201, right? The big idea here in getting started with the front end is we don't want to assume that anybody has front end developer experience. And we also don't want to assume that if they do, they prefer the Next.js and TypeScript stack, okay? However, we can show people an example built on that stack. And what it is safe to assume is that the data shows that, right, like JavaScript, TypeScript, Node development, and Next.js are popular enough that developers have probably heard about them, right? Even if you're not a React developer, you're probably aware of React, right? And so because we don't want to become, we're not trying to teach everybody everything about front-end development. We're picking an option that will give people an entry point. So
as a telescope group to our select. So if we just copy, so we can.
Hey, what's happening? Okay. Claudio, what do you say?
Yeah, I was just going to confirm, although it's not, I don't know how official it is, but you know, I go often enough to Ethereum meetups, and they say that 85% of dApps are they have the front end using React. So that kind of tells you the story.
Right. So it's like that's that question of, is it safe enough to use React for an entry-level dev course? It feels safe to me. Do you cover 100% of people? Of course you don't, right? But yeah, I think that's a great stat. Okay, so now we start thinking about learning targets. But what if the first thing we're going to do is just ask people to go to some demo application, right? So think about this, right? What's trivial for us at this point, we're going to make a little demo app that people can go play with. It's going to be hosted at, you know, like demo.plutuspbl.io or something this year, okay? And we'll have that demo app, people can go play with it. That's That's the lesson, though, right? That's just the little thing they'll do to learn a little something. But why are we having them do that? What's the learning target? I can see how an app front end works. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I want to think a little bit about what exactly is the minimum learning target people need to achieve here if they're not going all the way towards building something. Claudio, what do you say?
Yeah, I was actually wondering, we did last year the app deployment in the local host environment. I wonder if we might want to include a little link or tutorial to deploying something like Vercel, which is kind of useful to see how that process goes into deploying it into real app and real world deployment. I mean, you use Vercel yourself, right? So it's like seems like a popular enough framework to try.
Right. So this is a Next.js application with Mesh SDK installed, deployed via Vercel. And we can show people, yeah, hey, if you want to get started quickly, here's how we built this little demo. We started a Next.js project. We dropped Mesh SDK into it. We deployed it via Vercel. Good to go, right? And people are going to be able to review the whole code base for that thing and try to deploy it themselves if they want to. And that's great. So now we can start thinking, right? This is not going to be actually the first learning target, but maybe we want a learning target like I can deploy a simple app front end, right? And we might include, this is where it gets interesting too, as a teacher, like in the learning target, do you really want to include the name of a product like Vercel, right? Or do we just want to say I could deploy a simple dApp front end and then show people how to do so? We could think about that. This is not a finalized learning target yet. It just gives us a place to start. Now, before I deploy it, right, maybe we want people, I can run the PPBL demo app locally, something like that, right? And maybe before that is I can build some kind of TX in the PPBL live demo app, right? So now these need to be wordsmithed, right? Sometimes I don't put periods on the end of the sentences just to remind myself these are not final yet. And we don't like this order, right? So I'm thinking first thing we actually want people to do is go build some kind of transaction in the demo, then try to grab the code base and run it locally. And then if they want to, they can deploy that front end. Maybe before we even get to deployment, is there anything else we want people to see, right? Like, is this a good chance just to show people an intro to Mesh before linking them out to another course? For example, right? I can use the Mesh Connect wallet component to connect a user's wallet to my application. Okay. And maybe that would come after running locally, but before deployment. And then if we had a lesson about this one, in this lesson, we will introduce Mesh SDK and demonstrate some basics for getting started with it. But we won't go too deep. we'll share just enough, then link out to the mesh PBL course, which, by the way, is right here, right? We're already starting to work on that. So we got Aiken PBL led by Hinson already in development and a team building mesh PBL, right? So you can start to see that it's going to be very easy to link between these courses. So we'll call this like quick intro to mesh or something like that. That goes here. Good. So that's the concept there. I can just visit the front end and just build a transaction, right? Once again, just have the user experience. I can grab the code base for this and run it locally. I can play with the Connect wallet app or component, sorry. And optionally, I can deploy. What else do you want to show people? Oh, we're at time. Oh man, I completely lost track of the time. But yeah, hopefully you can kind of see the logic for how this stuff is coming together. Maybe there's other stuff we want to show people here. Alex, I saw you unmuted.
Sorry, instinctive reaction. I was just going to say nice session and thanks. Yeah, I was so yeah, governance like always. Every time we have governance, some discussion around that, and yeah, learning and teaching. Like I like how this course is small but comprehensive, and yeah, it's very important to keep the right things in and the right things out. Because maybe, yeah, just my exposure to Intersect and being there just all the time makes me talk about governance because it's the purpose of, it seems like this purpose of the organization, but things come and go. And yeah, smart contracts and products are one thing and governance is another thing. So maybe, yeah, total kind of, yeah, I really like how it looks.
Thanks, man. You want to do an optional? Anybody else want to check out today? Any other impressions about today's session?
Just want to say thanks to everybody for looking at my proposal, and I'll keep working on it. And it was a good discussion, and yeah, also the course stuff too was nice.
Thanks, Ken. Claudio.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm glad you proposed to run up the course at this stage. That was my impression. That was what I was going to propose from what we've seen last year. And then up at the 200 level modules was a really good tie for an advanced introduction really to Cardano development. I think it's pretty good. I'm glad it's there.
Me too. Just a little history for everybody. Yeah, in the past, we've planned 300 level modules, but often we've never delivered them. So this feels really good just to say, hey, let's not even plan 300 level modules this time, right? Let's do this. Let's get this part right. And Alex, to what you're saying, right? It's all connected because obviously there's so many other things to teach. But when options are abundant, focus is a superpower, right? By focusing on one thing, we accomplish that one thing so that the other options become clearer, more likely, right? And so I love this focus right now. We're focusing not because this is the only important thing, just because this is one important thing. And if we do it, now we'll be even better prepared to do the next important thing that comes up. And that, to me, that's the most thrilling idea.
Right. I just want to kind of 2 cents and say that like having 300 level modules in the way that they were before probably will be kind of really helpful because as we discussed before, 300 level modules should be about being able to collaborate with the people already in the ecosystem and to build connections, which is very important for being a Cardano developer. It's not everything is about writing code. So yeah, maybe invest in some time once this course we are like more confident in. Invest in some time is just preparing, some kind of just a link for a person to click and see that, oh, I'm sorry, there's no content, but we can actually,
Yeah, and
if
this
you're interested in that, we can help you, something like this.
whether it comes via live sessions or this course or a Gimbalabs website, people should understand that there are these options to collaborate 100%. And at the very same time, you and I might agree that collaboration is an essential part of development. Do all developers agree with that? And is it possible that somebody might come to this course and say, hey, I want to be a Cardano developer, but don't give me that shit about collaboration. Just show me what to do, right? Can you imagine that some learners will have that mindset?
Right, but this brings me back to the idea of what people what we as the teachers should show people that they don't know, but it would be good for them to know, because this kind of mindset usually, not always, but very often leads to people just doing things that aren't particularly interesting to anyone, and what they get is like, yeah, man, that's a good project, and I salute your enthusiasm, but nothing more, but ideally we would like for the learners to be satisfied. To have good developer experience means to be a satisfied developer. So when you do some work and then you find out that this work was actually not essential or may have not been done, with the same effect, it's not good developer experience. And for that, collaboration and talking to other people is kind of essential. So that's maybe the thing that we have to kind of, that's maybe the difference between having 200 level module and 300 level module, the realization of the point that if you do development, it's like it has to be someone has to use it. There has to be a user.
I put a placeholder here just to remind us of this. So let's
you.
call it now 301 invitations, and I put an S plural, right? Because there might be several different invitations to collaborate here or there or somewhere else. So yeah, let's keep that here. I like it. And maybe that's a really beautiful way to say, hey, if you're ready to specialize, right? Remember, in the past, we've talked about 300 level as specialization. If you'd like to specialize, there are opportunities to do that in different places. Here are some current collaborations that you could opt into if you want to, and you can keep going on your journey.
Yeah. And I actually have a SLT for so yeah, and for 301 invitation to collaboration, but let's bring it up on the next time.
Well, and just make sure if anybody wants to collaborate, we can add you as a contributor here. You can see Nelson Jingles, Hinson, Sebastian, and Juan are in here already. Just drop me a line on Discord, and I'll show you how to.
I did during the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'll follow up with you right after the call then. All right, y'all. Thanks for this session. We covered a lot today. It's kind of amazing that we were able to have two separate open spaces and do completely different things each time. Amazing. All right. Until next time. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.